Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bunch of Nuts podcast. This is Dan here with Big Cass. We're
It's season 7, man.
it is. We're feeling rejuvenated. Took the week off. It's the annual Fourth of July lull. You don't really record this week unless something crazy happens. But we're back, and it's season 7, man. It's crazy. We're super senior. We are Demario McCall.
Yeah. We're
uh,
Dylan Gabriel.
Literally. It's crazy though. It's 7 seasons of the podcast. And this is where we kind of, begin to hit our stride. And we start off obviously this time of the year, we start with our conference previews. And like this is our favorite time to talk football. I'm amped up. And this week, Cass texted me, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. You sent
Something
me
like that.
it's like you're like it's here, and I was like, what? I'm at work all delirious, and it was like it's media days, and he's absolutely right. It was Big 12 media days. We had Mike Gundy giving us the what is drunk. Like some guys can drink and drive, some can't.
Yeah.
Like what is drunk? So,
It yeah, I mean, and then you had because it's a new look college football season. A lot of new conferences, lot of things. And what's ironic about number 7 for us this is season 7, episode 1, as we could call it. And what's ironic, one of the first questions that was asked to Cam Rising was if the NCAA gives you eligibility for your 7th season, would you take it? And he said no. Like, obviously he said no. And Cam Rising happening to be Utah's quarterback. Why are we mentioning Utah? Well, they're in the Big 12 now. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird that here we are, season 7, the Dwayne Haskins year, for
proud of you.
us, and it's going to be the wildest season, I would think, in our 7 years.
I'm
Uh,
really excited. I'm really psyched for the season, brother.
yeah,
And like just to make it clear, we will be back for an eighth year, and like we're not gonna be like Cam Rising. We'll be back. I'm pumped. And like the more I look at the Big 12, man, the way they kind of did it and like they realigned, I like it. And, like I could get used to it. I think it's gonna be a fun conference. I
it
think
could be wide open.
it is, but I think with the 12 team playoff format, I think they might be able to get multiple teams in, believe it or not. I think
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think they could probably get 2 teams in the playoffs. Because I feel like that this conference they'll have a team, they'll have probably a good team, probably around 6 or 7, and then they might get a team in on the back end. I think they'll be a pretty decent conference, and they'll be exciting in the playoffs. So, um,
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely, if you look at the Big 12, and they absorbed Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado from the Pac-12,
yeah,
correct? Yeah.
correct.
And obviously last year we knew. Oh, and BYU, they got BYU. Oh, they must got BYU last year. I'm sorry. And if you really look at it, and in spring, like early spring, right before spring ball, there was a lot of talks that Arizona was going to be, before the head coach went on to Washington. There was a lot of talks that, oh, are they going to get that number 4 spot? Because basically, you look at the Big 12, are they ultimately playing for that number? Whoever the wins is going to be ultimate playing for that number 4 spot. They're in the playoffs. There are some teams in here. If you really look at it, it's one of those conferences. At the end of the day, they're going to beat each other up. There's going to be some weird wins, some weird losses, and we both said there's about 4 or 5 teams that can ultimately be that number 4 spot, because I think we're both in agreement. Who wins this conference is going to get that 4 spot.
I absolutely. And we both were in agreement with the 4 teams we think could win, and you had an extra, but I'll just give it right off the bat. Our 4 teams, we both had an agreement consensus that could win this conference: Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Kansas. And I'll just make a quick argument for each of these teams. Utah, obviously, Kyle
Yes.
Whittingham, Cam Rising. You've seen what they can do. They bring a ton of experience. Cam Rising is finally healthy. Kyle Whittingham's gonna, my biggest question is they did announce that like they have that transitional coach in place for when Whittingham steps down. I don't think that's anytime really soon. But that's just an interesting dynamic to keep an eye on. With that being said, I really like Utah. And in a conference that has not traditionally played defense, they will be the best defensive team, I think, um, traditionally.
I
Um,
I'm with you. I like Utah to win it as well. I also think that they're going to be obviously the most. They're not going to be. Will they be the most talented team? No, I think that's Colorado. I think Colorado is the most talented team. However, Colorado has no depth. There is no depth outside of Shador Sanders and you know uh, Travis Hunter. There's just how many snaps can Travis Hunter actually play, especially in a Big 12 where you're going to be playing 100 snaps. Like there's going to be a lot of offense. But then you get Utah. They're the most physical team and probably the best coach team in the
Absolutely.
conference. And but they're also a team that loses games that they're not supposed to. But I still think they're going to ultimately. Where is the Big 12 championship? Is it still in Dallas?
I believe it's no, I think it's Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. It might be. Let's.
If it's in Vegas, I still think they head to Vegas, but it's the matter of who they're going to play. Will it be Kansas? Will it be Kansas State?
It's
Um,
Arlington. I lied. It's Arlington, so it's
it's
Texas.
in Dallas. So
No, no, sorry. I'm looking at baseball. Hold on.
I mean, I'll finish, but like ultimately, Arizona and Colorado are the two teams that watch out. Like, what are they going to do?
It's
Ob-
Arlington.
Obviously, Colorado's, I think, most talented team. Most talented team outside the running back from Oklahoma State. I just think Kansas State, and Oklahoma State, they're going to be the three teams that are going to fight for that two spot. And I think it's going to be Oklahoma State versus um, Utah for the Big 12 championship. And I'm going to go Utah, obviously winning it.
I do like Kansas State. The Avery Johnson, he intrigues me as a player for them. How crazy would this be though, if Avery Johnson, Kansas State, let's say Ohio State finishes at like the 1 or 2 seed, and Kansas State, they don't win, but they're competitive. We could have a rematch potentially, Will Howard versus Kansas State in the playoff. That would be an intriguing. That would be a fun. I know we talk about intriguing matchups. That one just came to mind. I do think Kansas State. They have been very good. They've been very consistent the past couple of years. Um, I think they'll be solid. Um, I really like Oklahoma State this year because obviously they have Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be punished. He's just going to get the ball 50 times a game. But they got Alan Bowman. He's an experienced quarterback, and also they have they have some good players on defense. They have Nick Martin, middle linebacker for them. He's a 90 overall. And real quick, Cass. I have the EA Sports rankings, top the top players in the Big 12. Here are, I guess, looks like the top 15 players in the Big 12, and they're all inside the top 100 on the EA Sports NCAA football game. Top player in the Big 12 is Ollie Gordon, 96 overall. Travis Hunter's the 95 overall. He's the second best player in the Big 12. Teotera McMillan, Arizona receiver, 94 overall. He's number 3. Shador Sanders, 93 overall. He's the 4th. Decario Davis, Arizona, 92 overall. Taj Brooks, Texas Tech, 92 overall. Devin Neal, 92 overall. Luke Kandra, Cincinnati, right guard, 91 overall. RJ Harvey, UCF, halfback, 91 overall. I'm almost done. Dante Corleone, Cincinnati, defensive tackle, 91 overall. Kobe Bryant and Jalen Daniels on Kansas, 90 overall each. Nick Martin, who I just mentioned for Oklahoma State, 90 overall. Wyatt Millam, West Virginia left tackle, 90 overall. And Jonah Savinia, Arizona, 90 overall. And what stood out to me was just the fact that Kansas, I think, just eyeball that, I think had the most guys on that list. And that's why they're in. That we're in agreement. I think that they are very talented, Kansas. And I really love what Lance Leopold has done. And you saw what they did in the bowl game last year. They had a really good performance in their bowl game. I really like the momentum for Kansas. I'm not putting them as my winner of the Big 12, but I can absolutely see, and I think I said it months ago. don't be shocked if Kansas is like the runner up and is a playoff team. I could get behind that.
Yeah, I have Kansas finishing third, but there's just also a group of teams from 5 to 11, like Colorado, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, West Virginia, um, Iowa State, and Arizona. Like I said, those are the teams that might upset one of the four teams that we talked about. Um, Obviously, Colorado, we know. West Virginia's got a tough one week one. They host Penn State, so it's going to be interesting. But Kansas, if you look at the Sports Illustrated article, they are the fourth ranked best team in the Big 12, according to this. Kansas State's two, Oklahoma State three, Utah, obviously Utah number one. I just think Utah's experience trumps and the coaching trumps everything else.
Bro, real quick, let me give you Kansas's schedule because I think this is very manageable for them. They play August 29th. I don't even know if this is a real school or not. They're called Lindenwood. Never heard of them. Uh, that's crazy. They play Illinois week 2, UNLV week 3, West Virginia week 4, week 5, TCU week 6, Arizona State week 7, Houston week 8, Kansas State week 9, Iowa State. That's at home. That's important. Week 10 Kansas, week 10 BYU, week 11 Colorado, and week 12 Baylor. They avoid looks like Oklahoma State and Utah. Their biggest game of the year is obviously going to be against their arch rival Kansas State. That's a very manageable schedule. Like like if this team is any good, like because last year I thought they were pretty good. I could see them easily going 10-2, 11-1, believe it or not.
I think Dan is trying to convince himself to have Kansas at that number 4 spot in the college football playoff. And the reality is it could be true. Like that's the
They have a
reality.
dynamic quarterback, Jalen Daniels. They got Kobe Bryant. They got a good back. The receivers aren't too bad. Lance Leopold loves do some trick plays, the playbook. My biggest thing is I don't know how good they'll be in the trenches and on defense, but they'll be fun.
Dude, that Colorado Kansas game is going to be lit.
Absolutely.
How many what how when do they play each other? Did you read that off the day? Do they
They
play?
do. That's honestly probably their one of their biggest games.
What
Uh,
week is that?
that is the week before Thanksgiving, November 23rd. And
And Ohio State plays Indiana, man. That's
that's
got
at home for
do you
Kansas.
think do you think big noon kickoff will be there?
I could see that maybe being a game day. It depending on how the season's going for
Dude,
Colorado,
depending on how oh my lord.
because
Over under points has to be almost
80.
total points.
Yeah, I would say 80.
Dude,
And
I'm thinking UCLA, Texas A&M, Josh Rosen type of points that game, if you
yeah,
remember that game.
yeah, brother.
Just imagine the fireworks here in that game. Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt calling that game at 11 a.m. in Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah,
Man,
dude, that's gonna be a banger. I'm
wow.
excited. I'm excited. I'm like licking my lips. Cass, I have a question for you, and I wanted to get your take because I'm not. I couldn't really decide with TCU. They were in the national championship 2 years ago.
They
Last
were.
year was obviously building year. Do we see potentially a run from them, like a resurgence, or was that just kind of one hit wonder?
Ugh, I don't know. I I don't know.
They're my
Uh,
X factor. They're my mystery team in this. They could they could go to just what they could just be 12-0 again and like just blow everyone away. And it could be like, their coach. Their coach could have figured something out. And maybe he's a great coach. Or they caught fire in the ball the one season. I can't get a read on them.
well, and the thing is there's the crosstown team in Dallas that's in the ACC, which we'll talk about next week at SMU. Between those two Christian schools right there, between TCU and SMU, NIL is Dallas NIL is going to have to help these two schools. They are a mystery. I have West Virginia as my mystery team because it's just I don't know. It's hard to judge TCU.
It is, their schedule is kind of favorable early. They play Stanford, LIU, UCF, and then it kinda gets a little hard. It goes SMU, Kansas, Houston, Utah, Texas Tech, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Arizona, and then they finish at Cincinnati. They do kinda get the gauntlet of, I feel like, the Big 12. They play all the tough teams. So, if they run that, they're absolutely playoff. Like, if they go 12-0 through that, you're in, no problem. Like, studs. No, I got like, but I don't know if they
Do you
have horses.
do you know who's excited they're in there? Utah. If you watched Utah's Twitter page,
Yes.
the Key and Peele skit, it was fantastic.
No, just them giving the hugs, like, and then they're giving hugs to Arizona State and Arizona because they were both in the Pac-12, all in the Pac-12, and then BYU, they're like, no, 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 no.
The fist pump to Colorado,
Yeah,
giving the big hug to TCU
I
because
forgot
they used
about
to be
that. I
because they
forgot.
used to be in the Mountain West, and oh man, it's going to be fun. The Big 12. What else is going on? I mean, so we both unanimously say Utah's going to win it, but there's some scary teams. Um, Obviously Houston, Cincinnati.
I'm gonna change
There's
my pick. I'm gonna change my
there's a
pick to
schedule.
Kansas. I'm gonna change my pick to Kansas to winning the Big 12. Yeah, Utah will
All
be
right.
a playoff team, but Kansas is winning it. There's my
Well,
pick.
you better write that down because here in a few weeks when we do our 12-team playoff predictor, you
It's
got
like,
Kansas. You got Kansas as the number 4 team in the country. I think it's I think it's the battle of the number 4. Obviously, we're going to talk about ACC next week. But real quick, the rumor mill today that was dropped on Yahoo Sports: Clemson, Notre Dame, and Florida State possibly joining the Big 12.
um, I don't hate. It makes sense, honestly. It would make sense because here's why. And you already got UCF. Florida State's more west, like they're west in the Panhandle, and I feel like that kind of makes sense. That kind of the gap there kind of makes sense. And then like they're so west in Florida, like go all the like to all the Texas teams and stuff. That's fine. I feel like the travel's not bad. Notre Dame joining with like with Cincinnati in that area, that makes sense, like the Midwest. And then Clemson, just if Florida State goes, they kind of have to follow, I think. And they would obviously be, I feel like Clemson would be big fish, I guess. Not really though, because Florida State and Notre Dame are just as big. Um,
Well, but also the other rumor, which we got to talk about today because it's a rumor. No, ACC in real big talks of making Notre Dame a football permanent school. Um, because if you let's talk about Notre Dame. Let's actually talk about their independent. Um, and they, regardless of Notre Dame, they could go undefeated and they'll never get the number 4 spot. This is really, if you're that's why I think these two rumors came out today about them really in talks with the Big 12 and the ACC. I think if you're the ACC, you need to land Notre Dame because I think that convinces Clemson, Miami, and Florida State to stay.
how funny would it be if Notre Dame did go undefeated this year? They were like the fifth seed.
Well, they also said that playoff, like there's a rumor going around. This is a rumor thing in between segments here. Uh, there's also the rumor stating that because you could basically between 5 through 12, you could almost do playoff seedings where there was a rumor say if Penn State could maybe get an away game if they're like if they're because if this comes down to the 8 and 9 seed, they were talking about the 8 and 9 seed and I believe it was the 7 and 10. They could, if it comes down to weather, and the weather could play a factor in seeding. I was reading, and that could prevent, and that's where I would say that's bullshit. And I know we don't cuss a lot on this, but that is complete bullshit bush league. If you're looking at if you're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're going to seed teams away because of getting them out of cold weather is bullshit. If
Yeah,
that's if that's what the chairman of the playoff
shame
committee, I
on
believe,
them.
yeah. So you're basically, if you're looking at Notre Dame and Penn State, who I think are in that 5 to 12 range. I know Penn State's next week. You could ultimately screw them. And then you talk about Kansas and Utah, right? You're talking about Kansas and Utah, right?
Yeah.
It's cold in Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas, and it's cold in Utah as well.
It gets cold everywhere. I feel like that time of the year, to be honest. There's really no hot, like even the South. Like I go south a lot for like the New Year's and like Christmas time. I go down to Georgia, South Carolina. It gets
They can
cold.
get in
It
the
can get into the
40s.
30s and 40s easily.
Yeah, but not the 20s and teens.
No,
So, speaking of the South, the SEC.
I mean, this will be an intriguing conference, but
Their
it,
media days are this weekend. That's why we're doing Big 12 and SEC this weekend.
I'm more
This week.
excited. I'm more excited about the Big 12 this year.
Me too.
Don't get me wrong. I'm more excited about to see what they bring. The SEC, I feel like it's going to be more of the same with them. I'm not expecting major changes. Just the only thing is Oklahoma and Texas joined. Um, but let's get into it. What are your thoughts on the SEC race? Who do you like? Who do you not like? Let's do yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Who I like to sneaky. Let's talk about sneaky. I like Missouri. Um, I like I like Oklahoma, and I like I'm talking about teams that in Tennessee. I'm
Like
talking about
get into the
teams
playoff, but like and maybe get like an upset or
cause chaos, cause chaos.
I like your chaos teams. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good.
Missouri, Tennessee, and who was it? I said it. Who else did I say? Missouri, Tennessee. I just had them. Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, they got Texas. I believe they play Alabama. I believe as well. Um,
For me, I would take out Oklahoma and replace them with Ole Miss.
see,
Um,
I have Ole Miss in that can win can win the conference. I have Ole Miss,
oh,
Alabama, Texas, and Georgia.
gotcha. I don't think Ole Miss can win the conference. I have them in chaos and potentially winning, like getting into the playoff. I would put Tennessee, uh, Missouri, Ole Miss as teams that will cause chaos and could make the 12 team playoff. I think the contenders are just Georgia, Texas, Bama. Those are my three contenders. LSU, I think I don't have them even as my chaos, believe it or not. I think
I have them as
I have them with Oklahoma, like very good. Well, not very good.
potentially can win it, potentially can cause chaos. Unlikely that they'll cause chaos.
I like it. Fair, good. Yeah.
I
Um,
kind of now, if you really think about it, I have Oklahoma there too, and then maybe also because Missouri, Tennessee. I think with Missouri, they got a lot of guys back, and they obviously went toe to toe with Ohio State's defense, and just obviously we were gassed at the end in the Cotton Bowl, but like they went toe to toe with Georgia at Georgia last year, and Tennessee's high powered offense. I like Nico at quarterback. Uh
look, no one loved Joe Milton more than me, but like the Nico kid is
he's good,
he,
really good.
he's better. He's going to be better. He might be their best quarterback they've had in years. And I know I said that last year, and I was kind of joking a little bit. He's a stud. That kid's a stud. They have potentially number one pick in the NFL draft, Tennessee, James Pierce. They have basically Brew McCoy, Squirrel
And they
Right.
got Alabama at home.
They got the Tennessee, the Tulane transfer at receiver, and then their back is supposed to be pretty good. I think Tennessee is going to be very good this year. I really do. I said that last year, but I think this year, with the 12 team playoff, it helps them not get demoralized if they lose one of those games to Georgia or Alabama. The season's not lost. They could lose both of those. They go 10-2, they're going to be in the playoff if they have those two losses. I
Yeah,
I
you're
find
right.
it now.
And I think they could go to think about we talked about Kansas and Colorado earlier. Do they look at Tennessee's schedule? You have Tennessee's schedule up?
Let me pull it up. Pull up. I got it right here. Chattanooga, NC State, Kent State, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, but they play Florida at home. That's big this year because the swamp is obviously tough. Then they play Bama at home, and then Kentucky at home, and then Mississippi State. They have four in all of October through like early November. They have 4 games at home, and they're big games. And then they go on the road to Georgia. They go to they have home. And then they're away the last 2 games. Well, no, they have University of Texas El Paso at home, and then their last game of the year is Vanderbilt. That's on the road. It's just yeah, this schedule, it's tough, but like
So
it
they got Alabama and Georgia, right? You
yeah.
said they avoid Ole Miss. I
They
dang it,
they
damn it.
need to be their biggest game on that schedule is gonna be NC State week 2. And I had that
Because that'll see what they're about.
they will. If they lose that game, they're not going to beat Bama or Georgia. And if they win that though, the season's on. Like the
Hmm.
season's on for them. They're in great position to go 10-2. I think, and
I
potentially steal one of those games.
Alabama is interesting too because Kalen DeBoer replacing a legend. Um, they have potential 3 or 4 losses. Correct me if I'm wrong on their schedule. Because we talk about Tennessee. I believe they play Oklahoma.
They do, but with the one thing I'm giving them credit, DeBoer credit, is he has succeeded at every single
Yeah,
level, FCS
and he's
level.
recruiting well.
He's recruiting well, and look, it's never going to be the Nick Saban level, but we saw what DeBoer did with the talent he had at Washington. He didn't have the best talent, but he's a great coach. He maximized it. He has way more talent at Alabama. I think they're going to be fine.
And it comes down to the development of Jalen Milroe. Did Jalen Milroe get better at quarterback? And that's if that's the case. Georgia and Texas, I think, believe it or not, if you really look this, I think Alabama and Ole Miss are right there. Like, yeah, they could beat them, but if you look at it, head and shoulders above everybody else is Texas and Georgia.
I think Georgia's still head and shoulders above Texas. I, I think Georgia just last year they got unlucky in the SEC championship, and it was champion fatigue, and the committee said, "Oh, you didn't win the championship. You went 11-1. We're keeping you out of the playoff." And I think that was just so wrong what they did to
Where
Georgia.
where's
Uh,
that Georgia Texas game at?
I don't even. I didn't. I not even
I'm
looked.
looking at that.
Look that up. Um, I just think though they got championship like fatigue, but that the roster is so deep.
It's at Texas.
I'm just I'm not. I will say I'm not sold on the Carson Beck hype. That's my one thing about Georgia. I don't think he's as good as everyone makes him out to be.
Well,
With that being said, they have so many weapons at every other position. If you look at
ETN.
yeah,
Um, I like Texas a lot. I mean, did their defense get better? Because now they're going to play big boy. They're going to play big boy defense football in the SEC. And Quinn Ewers is back. I think Quinn Ewers is probably, in my opinion, he's one of the front runners for the Heisman. With Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter, and obviously there's a few other guys we'll talk about later on in down the road. I have Texas. Obviously, we know this a few weeks ago when I said that way too early college football playoff prediction. I have Texas winning the SEC. Um, but I also look at this game. If Texas beats Georgia October 19th, Georgia wins the SEC. If Georgia beats Texas October 19th, Texas wins the SEC
so you're
championship. I
saying
think
you
it's
have
it's a
three.
rematch.
Okay, I don't hate that take. Um, real
I
quick,
really like both teams.
and that you can make the argument for Texas. I just think Georgia's going to be on a warpath this year. They are the team to like them, and I feel like Ohio State are both on a warpath of just anger and hate, and just how the season ended for both those teams last year. I think it's going to be a collision course in the championship, Ohio State versus Georgia. Um, with that being said, Cass, let me just give you the top. I did I did like 15 players in the Big 12. I'm only gonna do 10 in these. This is the EA Sports top 10 um, SEC players. It's number one. They have Will Campbell, LSU Tigers, left tackle, 96 overall. Number two, James Pierce, edge rusher, Tennessee Volunteers, 95 overall. Malachi Starks, Georgia safety, 95 overall. Tate Ratledge, Georgia right guard, 95 overall. Luther Burden, I don't understand why he's this high. He is a 94 overall wide receiver from Missouri. Kelvin Banks, where is it? Kelvin Banks, Texas, left tackle, 94 overall. Carson Beck, quarterback, Georgia, 93 overall. Michael Williams, Bulldogs, outside linebacker, left outside linebacker, 93 overall. Dion Walker, right end, Kentucky, 93 overall. And then last but not least, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, 93 overall, Ole Miss. So that's your top 10.
Could
Lot of talent.
could an SEC team be the number 3 seed? Because you think about it, obviously we could dive into it, but there's potential that could be an SEC team get the number 3 seed due to the fact that Ohio State or Oregon, I think those are the two best teams in the Big Ten, and then the ACC could be so weak that they could be undefeated in the ACC.
Yeah.
So, but
Kansas runs the table, baby, 12-0, and just
so right now we both have two top 4 teams in the college football playoff of the 12-team playoff. You have Kansas and Georgia. I have Texas, Utah.
Well, and I like both our picks. I really do.
And by the way, I have Georgia as the number 5 seed.
So real quick. So these are our conference winners. Like I have Georgia winning SEC, and then Kansas winning the Big 12, and then you have those two winning. And we'll obviously reveal our ACC picks in next
Big 10.
Big 10, yeah.
Well, Ohio State.
I mean, every show is a Big 10 preview show when you think about it. Maybe we'll do a little more like maybe group of 5 maybe next week. Throw that in there.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, because there's some good teams. Tennessee, Texas San Antonio, Tulane, Boise State, Appalachian State. Quietly, nobody's talking about James Madison. They're not too bad. Well, they just lost their coach to Indiana, so never mind. But there's some good group of 5 teams, but obviously Big 10, ACC next week. But there is some good recruiting news. There was at the beginning of the week last week when you started your holiday week, going July 3rd, you're like, oh, like you're heartbroken because Ohio State just lost 3 recruits at the Corian Moore, Justin Hill, and there was another kid that committed to Oregon. Dorian Brew, DeCorian Moore, and Justin Hill. So, Dad, we're going into the 4th of July. We're like, damn it. Like, we struck for 0 for 3 with recruits, which we knew that I think it was the Dorian Brew wasn't going to go to
Oregon
Ohio
one. Yeah, it was the Oregon one because
Dorian Brew,
outfit that stung. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, the Corian Moore, the wide receiver stung for me, but
not really though. I don't like we can the guys we lost. Like we lost a receiver and a corner, and it's like we have the 2 top corners and
then Justin Hill from Cincinnati commits to Alabama, which
that
I don't think
hurt the most. I think
it hurt, but I don't think it's over. I don't.
I like that.
I don't think it's over, but we're like sitting here. We have a great 4th of July. We probably enjoyed some barbecue. I played around the golf on Friday for the first time in 7 years. I didn't think I did too bad. Saturday came about 1:00 in the afternoon. Riley Pettijohn, the number 1 inside linebacker in the country, commits to Ohio State. I think 6'2", 215. He will by the time he gets with Mickey Marotti to 235. The kid is fat, runs a 10.6 100-meter yard dash. I'm stoked about this kid.
I'm stoked. The one thing I just want to say is just he better not wear any of his high school gear on campus because it looks exactly like the Team Up North's gear. You better keep that stuff in Texas, my friend. But a great addition to this team. I'm very excited. I'm okay with losing the receiver and the corner and stuff because we needed that position, I think. And like a guy like him, I think is like a championship caliber linebacker. I'm psyched about it. Cass, we got about 30 seconds here. Real quick as I wrap up. Um, NCAA football comes out next week. We'll be streaming. If you want to be on the schedule for us to play you, let us know. We'll get you on the schedule. But Cass, like we're gonna start streaming and get some games going. I'm so psyched. But that's all I got. So thank you for
That's all I
listening
got.
to the episode and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.